want to spend a minute on Trump and the Veep stakes on the Republican side. Trump telling NBC News at that Philadelphia campaign stop where he just got tons of crowds and so much enthusiasm. This is like the heart of the Democratic Party, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Joe Biden's 2020 campaign headquarters were in this city. He's been there at least 5 times this year. Trump went and crushed. You never know about crowd size, et cetera, but it happened. Anyway, he told NBC in Philadelphia, he has decided, quote, in my mind, who he will make his vice presidential running mate, and says the person most likely will be at Thursday's debate against Joe Biden. By the way, we will be doing live coverage of that debate right here on Megyn Kelly Show, youtube.com/Megyn Kelly if you want to see our live reaction right after. Now, there is a report in Puck News by Tara Palmieri that the Veep stakes on the Republican side has turned into a proxy fight between Tucker Carlson and Rupert Murdoch. That Rupert wants more establishment types along the lines of maybe a Doug Burgum, that he would be fine with Marco Rubio. His number one love is Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia. And Tucker is good friends with, I can confirm, J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance is ready to accept the America First baton from Trump in a way, arguably, those others are not. And the reporter makes the point that this is why this sort of proxy fight, we've seen some Murdoch publications not so kind to J.D. Vance, not hugely fans of him, apparently. And it did remind me of this exchange that made headlines the other day where Bret Baier had on J.D. Vance, and this is a completely fair line of inquiry, but asked J.D. about his original, back in 16-15, thoughts on Trump. Watch.
You know, Senator, this is an evolution, and I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things that the left is going to come after you, and they're probably going to be put in ads should you be chosen as the VP pick. How do you deal with them now?
Yeah, well, I think the simple answer is you've got to respect the American people enough to just level with them. Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president, and it's one of the reasons why I'm working so hard to make sure he gets a second term. I think you should. When you're wrong about something, you should change your mind and be honest with people about that fact.
What do you make of it, Victor, and whether this is a proxy fight and whether J.D. Vance could still be chosen, notwithstanding calling Trump America's Hitler?
Well, it works both ways. The left was, and when he said that about, I know J.D. a little bit, but you remember he had just done this book about growing up in Appalachia, Hillbilly Elegy or whatever. And the left loved it. They loved it because it wasn't just empathetic to the working class. It was also self-critical. And self-critical of pathologies that made people in Appalachia stuck in poverty. And the left then thought, and then they kind of canonized it. It was a bestseller. They made a movie out of it. They just embraced him. And in that period, I think he reflected that. And then when he started to change a little bit in 2016 after that, they just turned on him. And they despise him now. And I think he was wrong. And I remember talking to him in that period at one point. I met him, and the first time I met him, and he was very polite about it. He just said that he disagreed with Trump. He didn't like him. I didn't know he had called him the other things, but it's always better to be transparent. On the larger, and I think he's doing that, but Bret Baier is exactly right. They're going to have a lot of tough commercials about that. I think when you look at all these candidates, with Trump, I think people are not going to go with a typical, this person balances them racially or gender-wise or this state or that state. They're going to look for somebody, because both vice president candidates, if Biden should get the nomination, both are septuagenarians, and he's an octogenarian, Biden. And people are going to say, we want somebody that we can rely on And that's not Kamala Harris. We don't want a Kamala Harris. We don't want anybody on the Republican side, not that there would be any, but we want somebody who has experience. And the other thing that's really important, you've got to have somebody who genuinely likes Trump and knows both his strengths and weaknesses, his foibles, his occasional, slanders or whatever, his toxic tweets, and can put that in perspective given what he's done for the country and his law. And I think that feels comfortable with him. So when I don't see that big, maybe you would disagree with me, but I don't really see that big difference between J.D. Vance, Glenn Youngkin, Marco Rubio, Doug Burgum in the ability to run the country. I think they're all able to do that. Maybe the others have a little bit more executive experience than JD, but I think they genuinely like, or they've come to like Donald Trump. They're not going to be leaking about him if he were to be elected. They're not going to whine, say, oh my gosh, you don't know what it's like to work. There's not going to be an anonymous on their staff. That's very, very important. Pence had that for a while, but at the end, you got the impression that although he was capable and he was very loyal to Trump, and Trump in many ways was not nice to him or didn't treat him well, but you got the impression that his Christianity, his morality, it just couldn't stomach Donald Trump. And that kind of exuded that. And then after, January 6th and that came out very strongly. And if it came out so strongly that I don't know if he's going to vote for Donald Trump. And that tells me that when he was vice president, he had to suppress that all the time. And he did a good job of that, but there was a natural antipathy for who Trump was or what he represented or his behavior. And I don't sense that with any of the people, whether they're Murdoch or Tucker people. I feel like they all, for one reason or another, they feel they're at the 11th hour of this country. And they look at Trump and they say, this guy is the only person who of all the available alternatives that's got the agenda that got the agenda to work. And more importantly, he's indestructible, and I'm going to support him. And I don't really give a blank if he says something or that, because it's the country's at stake. And you have to have that solidarity at this point. Yeah. And you have to have somebody who is very articulate. And when you listen to JD, the way he handled Brett Bart, I've been really amazed how well spoken Marco Rubio is recently. I know that he had drank water and that reply to the State of the Union that time, but he's really developed into a skilled
I love
debater.
That's his sin. He drank water.
Yeah.
How are we going to get past it? But no, the problem wasn't the water drinking. It was that he didn't instill confidence. It's like you just looked at him and you're like, I don't think he can do it.
Remember Chris Christie
but he has matured.
Destroyed him? He's very,
Chris
and Glenn
Christie
Youngkin is very good on his feet.
Here's my own take on it. I love JD Vance, really love JD Vance, and think he's such a good man. We would be so lucky to have him in public service, whether it's as vice president, president, or senator for a long, long time. And I think one thing that will be appealing about him to Trump is he's young. I've discussed it with the audience before, like the Willy Wonka approach to successorship, that I can't bring in a grown-up who already has all their views already formed and cemented. I need somebody on whom I can make an impression with my own view of how to do things. And I think JD is young enough and hasn't been in a public service long enough that he would qualify as someone who could take that baton from Trump and let his own views be very Trumpified. It's already happening. Marco Rubio's got the same problems JD does in terms of past criticisms of Trump. Marco Rubio was standing, I was the one cross-examining these guys while they were on the stage back in 16 and beyond, right? He said a lot of negative things about Trump too. So he's also going to get hit. He's not a solution to that problem. Doug Burgum might be, and Trump likes business leaders and he loves billionaires, and Burgum's very successful. And he does give me the feeling he could run the country. But would he actually be loyal to Trump when the chips were down? And I think Trump is, he wants somebody who he can control a little bit more than a billionaire like Burgum, who doesn't need any of this. He might be tough to control, I think, from Trump's perspective. And Tim Scott might have none of these problems exactly, but I have a feeling that Trump is not going to pick Tim Scott, because Tim Scott has been so obsequious to Trump, so over the top. And I know Trump loves praise and all that, but I think it's undermined Tim Scott's credibility and strength in the eyes of the voters. And Trump sees all this stuff better than anybody. He's a great reader of people and their reactions. And I think he's kind of helped himself with Trump, but at the same time hurt himself in the Veep stakes, which leaves us where I have no idea. If I had to put money on the ones I just mentioned, I think I'd go with JD or Marco. Marco's got the Florida problem too. One of them's going to have to move out of Florida because under our Constitution, you can't have both the vice president and the president running from the same state. Do you ever think, how can I work this hard and still be in debt? The piles of overdue bills, the threatening phone calls, and never having money to do anything. It just won't stop. If you are trapped in debt, Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed aggressive new strategies to end your debt permanently. Done with Debt stands between you and your harassing bill collectors. They tirelessly negotiate with your creditors to lower or even forgive what you owe. They do it all without bankruptcy or new loans. One client said, "One phone call saved us a fortune. I wish we did this long ago." Done with Debt has unique strategies to get you out of debt faster and put even more money in your pocket every month. But you need to hurry because some debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Visit donewithdebt.com. Talk with one of their debt relief strategists for free and you have nothing to lose except your debt. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.